Hi, my name is Gayatri, and since you have found this video, that means you were clearly looking for some information on GME, which is granulomatous meningoencephalitis. It is a horrid disease that happens to dogs and cats, and since you found this video, or you were probably searching for it online, probably you are looking it up for your pet, for your dog or cat who may have been diagnosed. If that's the case, firstly, I'm really sorry about that. And I had a similar story. My pet Cookie, who was a 3.5-year-old female Spitz, she was diagnosed with GME earlier this year, and it was a 2-month long battle, and sadly, she succumbed to this horrible disease. And in the duration of trying to cure her, I tried looking everywhere on the internet for as much information as possible. And sadly, GME is very poorly researched and very poorly diagnosed, and I never could find the right information. Uh, which is why I decided to put this video up. If there is anyone who can benefit from our journey and our stories, just the chronology of events, the issues that happen, not only due to GME, but also mainly because of the medication of GME, if there's anyone who can benefit from our journey, if any dog or cat or any animal on this planet benefits from what we went through, then this whole exercise is worth it. This video is solely for that purpose. Just a few disclaimers: I'm not a medical professional of any sort. I will be naming some medicines, but that is purely for reference and context. It is not an advice or prescription of any sort, so please do not self medicate based on this video. The health of your pet is of extreme importance, and the only reason I'm doing the video is just to give you some clarity on what others are going through, or a few signs to watch out for, and just to know that you're not in this alone. There are thankfully very few, but there are other dogs and cats who are struggling and fighting GME. And while the chances always seem bleak on the internet, it's very, very subjective, and that's something we learned in our journey. So I have actually prepared a few notes because there was so much that was going on. So I might be looking away, just so that I don't give you any misinformation, and that I try to keep this as factual as I can. So our firstly, I'll just get into a little basics of what GME is. So like I said, it's a granulomatous meningoencephalitis. It's also known as MUE, which is meningitis of unknown etiology. Um, of course, this just sounds like such big, harsh words, but the point is that no one really knows when the onset of GME happens. I lost my pet to GME, and I still don't know how she got it, what we could have done to prevent it from happening. In some cases in the US, it does come because of a Lyme disease vaccination, but I'm in India and we had no such vaccination that was administered. So it is literally of unknown origin. We really don't know where it came from, which makes it even harder to accept that something horrible like this could happen. And when I say we, I mean me and my husband, we were just paranoid pet parents. We have another dog, Cookie's elder sister, Gia, who is a Cocker Spaniel, also fairly young. So Cookie was 3.5 when this happened, and Gia is just a year older. And we were extremely paranoid, very, very careful. We never let them out of sight, but it still happened. So whatever you do, if it's in our destiny, then it's going to happen. So I'm going to try and keep this less emotional and more factual, because watching me cry is not going to make you feel any better. So I'm just going to chop those parts right out. So coming back to GME, it is basically an inflammation in the nervous system, and it is an autoimmune disease. That is the most important fact about GME. you all would have googled, there are various types of GME. There is a focal, which is one area, there's a disseminated or a multifocal one, and then there is an ocular, which only affects the eye. What Cookie here had was a disseminated or a multifocal GME. So just in terms of when this happened, so right now I'm shooting this video. We're on 12th of July of 2019. The first day I noticed something wrong with Cookie was on 7th of April this year. We were down on our walk. It was a routine day. Everything was absolutely fine. There was no fever. There was no tick fever. There was no dullness, weakness, diarrhea. There was nothing at all. She was absolutely fine. She was a very, very energetic and a hyper dog that we literally couldn't keep up with. She was full of life. And we were down on our regular routine walk. And while walking, suddenly it just seemed like there was some sort of a lack of coordination in her limbs. Just seemed like the back limb was moving a lot faster than the front limb. Overall, it did not look good. Her hands couldn't hold the weight of her body, so she kept falling smack on her chin, and it was just too much for us to handle because of how random this incident was. And of course, we picked her right up, and we went to the doctor the very next day. And that was day one, April 7th of 2019. And in the next 3 days, there was a direct, gradual, onset of some form of a paralysis. So by April 9th, she just wasn't able to stand up. She was just perpetually lying down. Her pee, poop, everything was happening lying down. She was eating and drinking water also lying down. Very uncomfortable, of course, and pretty difficult to manage in terms of keeping her clean. So that was the situation, and of course, we immediately rushed to the doctor. So just to give you an idea of what all we went through at the doctor, the first thing they did was, of course, a basic examination followed by a blood test. The blood results were absolutely fine. Then we moved on and we did a sonography. Sonography was fine too. Then we did an X-ray to see if there's some kind of spinal injury or dislocation or slip disc or anything of that sort which was causing the imbalance. X-ray was fine too. Then we were referred to a neurologist in Bombay, and we went to him, and he first did an MRI. Everything was largely also, it was completely fine in the MRI as well. And the last thing we were recommended was a CSF tap, which is a cerebral spinal fluid tap. So what they do is they shave off a little bit of fur from the back, from the nape of the neck, and they draw out some fluid from the spinal region here, and that is tested to see if there's any kind of inflammation or any infections in that fluid that's in the brain. We drew 2 samples. One was sent to a local lab in Bombay. That's just a preliminary procedure. The real lab who does this is in Bangalore. There's just one in the whole country who does these tests, and that takes about 4 or 5 days for the results to come in. And it is also fairly expensive. But of course, as you can understand, when it comes to the health of your pet, you typically leave no stone unturned. Of course, this whole procedure was very expensive. In India, we don't even really take insurance for our pets like people in the US do. So it did turn out very expensive, but that's still a very, very small part of this whole journey, and I wouldn't want to talk about that right now. Coming back to the CSF tap, we did the test in Bombay. The result came immediately, and it did show some inflammation in the cerebral fluid, and that was backed by the test that came from Bangalore as well. Now, while all of this was happening, I did, of course, get a second opinion, and she did a lot of examination, and she drew some blood again and sent it to another, I think the same lab in Bangalore, and she was suspecting a disease called Babesia gibsoni, which is basically a tick-led disease. So at that time, we were really hoping it would be Babesia, because at least that is something that's known and something that has a cure. Very difficult disease, but between, a doubt that it could be GME or something called Babesia, we were, obviously hoping it would be the latter. But turns out she did have Babesia also, in addition to GME. So we had our medication for Babesia that also happened on the side. Now, coming back to our flow of events, so we did see an inflammation in the fluid, and hence we started medication. Now, we did, of course, do all of our Google research, and it just seems very bleak, and it seems very scary. It definitely says that if there's no treatment, it is definitely an absolutely fatal disease. Even with treatment, the life expectancy is between 8 days to, I don't know, 1,000 odd days. Just the fact that everything is measured in days itself is scary. But we did meet a few other dogs at the clinic who were going through various types of GME, and there are dogs that can live for 4 to 5, 6 years on this medication, and there are, of course, some that just can't take it and they succumb to the disease in less than a week. Even there is no doctor was able to tell us anything about what we should expect and what could happen. They kept saying it is, a very unpredictable disease, and it is, we really can't say, and it's too subjective. So throughout the struggle, all we heard was these words, which also makes it even more difficult to sit with, even to accept that something like this is happening and that we have no clarity whatsoever. But such is the nature of this disease, and you just have to do your best to ensure your pet has a healthy, happy life. Since day one, we were told that the focus will be on quality of life of your pet, and I think that is really important, and it's a very wise approach. We were very clear saying we need to ensure she has quality of life and not just a prolonged life. It's easier said than done, but it's something that one has to consider. Now, coming back to, of course, April 7th is when it started. April 13th is finally when we had definitive news that it was GME. We started various types of treatment. Firstly, she was put on antibiotics and a tablet called Septran that we had started. Uh, Septran was also prescribed to my other dog, Gia. Anything that's contagious, then the other dog needs to be treated as well. So Septran, we were giving both of them. Then, because it was GME, we needed and it's an autoimmune disease, we needed an immunosuppressant, which is called prednisolone or called Pred. That is a subcutaneous injection that earlier the doctors were giving morning, evening, but it has to be given morning, evening, every single day. So I was trained how to do that at home, and I was giving the injections myself at home to Cookie. In addition to that, there was a chemotherapy drug. It's not the chemotherapy dosage, it's a very, very small dosage, but it is a chemotherapy drug called cytarabine that we were giving once in 21 days. It was varying doses. Then there was another antibiotic by the name Clinda Pet. She had a UTI for which we were giving cranberry supplements. Her bowel movement was a problem because she couldn't stand up. So she couldn't, sit in her position to move her bowels. So we were giving her Dufalac, which is a stool softener. There was medication for Babesia gibsoni that was also going on. And a few days into the treatment, we noticed she was in some kind of pain, and our neurologist told us that she could have possibly developed a slip disc. So we were giving her painkillers to soothe the pain of the slip disc, and that medicine was called gabapin, the painkiller. Now, April 7th is when it started. April 13th is when she was almost completely paralyzed. The treatment started, on all before April 13th itself, and on April 25th is when she just stood up on her own, absolutely unexpected. just by herself. Of course, we were ecstatic to see her standing. She just stood up and she started walking, and we thought that was it. Her disease is over, and now she's walking, and everything's going to be fine. Of course, the pred and all of the immunosuppressants gave her that kind of movement and a little bit of strength as well. So she was walking. Everyone asked us how she was doing, and I keep saying, she does her basics. She gets up for her business. She gets up to drink her water. She gets up to eat her food, and that's it. We weren't taking her down on walks because she was still very, very weak, and because she was on immunosuppressant, which means her immune system is compromised. So exposing her to any kind of other cat feces or any stray animals is a risk, because they might be carrying some diseases, and because her immune system is suppressed, she might catch those diseases very easily. So she was pretty much under house arrest, for a very long time, until, of course, eventually the doctors told us that we can start taking her down. So we did start. She was, obviously not walking around properly for the first few days, and then slowly, we ensured to not break that gap, because every day was better than the other, and she would, just very slowly walk around. There were days where she would refuse to walk, so we would have to just carry her and take her around, because her mind was still very active, even though her body was not supporting it. So we took her for drives, or we just carried her around. The doctors did recommend getting a pram and just taking her around, just so that she doesn't shut down mentally, because the most obvious thing is, oh yeah, if she's sick, let's not take her out. But for a dog, that's a really sad life, right? There's no new information, there's no stimulus to think about, nothing to smell, nothing to see, and I think that's really sad for a dog. So we ensured we try to take her out as much as possible, of course, while exercising caution as advised by our doctors. From April 17th to June 15th, we largely did the same routine. We were on pred and a lot of antibiotics, and we had the chemo dose as well, which was given by the doctor, not at home. And she was walking, she was doing her basic. The dosages kept getting adjusted basis how she was doing. We did do regular checkups in that time. It was pretty much a span of 2 months, April, May, June. And everything was fine. Things were good. We went on a routine check to the neurologist, and he just recommended, why don't you get her blood work done, because it's been a while. So on June 15th, we took her back to our regular doctor just for a routine blood test. Now, this blood test was a shocker to us. There was nothing wrong with her again. It was just the way she was, from April 25th onwards, walking, eating, wasn't puking, stool was fine, urine was fine, temperament was okay, mind was active, things like that. So we got a blood test done, and the first thing that we noticed was that the platelets were really low. WBC was really high, and all the measures were largely messed up at the time. And on the very next day, they checked, and the bilirubin in her blood was very high, and they declared that she had jaundice. It's the same as in humans, bilirubin. So we said, okay, jaundice. So we started treatment for jaundice, right off the bat. So this is June 15th. June 17th, we went back and they checked her blood again. Again, everything was off. They also checked her electrolytes. Now, electrolytes is your sodium, potassium, chloride. It's just those key measures in the body that have to be in check. And her electrolytes were really messed up on June 17th. So it was all, definitely a concern. All these reports were shared with the neurologist, and he told us that the liver, the liver was kind of messed up because of all the steroids. Prednisolone and cytarabine are steroids, and they are very difficult to digest, and they lead to a lot of gastro issues and liver damage. So we were told that the liver damage is because of the steroids. The low platelets, again, there was medication given to battle that, and she was in general a little weak by then, and the weakness was a result of the low platelets. Now, so on June 17th, she was also checked for ammonia levels, and her ammonia was okay. Coming to June 18th, her electrolytes were checked again and her CBC blood, and both of them again were, all haywire in terms of the measures. So from June 17th onwards, we were at the doctor every single day for about 10 hours. So we'd be the first people in the morning, and we'd be the last people to leave in the evening. So June 15th, 16th was a Sunday, so we didn't do much. 15th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st. All of these days we were at the doctor. We just came home to sleep and we would go back in the morning. So coming back to June 19th, ammonia, electrolytes, blood, everything was getting monitored almost on a daily basis and everything was messed up. They did notice that the plasma in the blood was less. I'm not going to get into what that is because, truth be told, I still don't know. But there was something in the blood that was missing, and we needed a plasma transfusion. So we needed a dog, another full grown, healthy, big breed dog to donate blood for Cookie, and we were lucky enough to manage to find someone to do that, and we did the blood transfusion over the span of 6 to 7 hours. It's a very slow procedure, and she did stabilize after the blood transfusion. So again, we were relieved because we got the blood and everything was fine. But turns out that the blood transfusion only bought us time, and to be more specific, it just bought us one more day of her being arguably stable. Now, as days were proceeding, new things kept happening with her. She was, of course, going terribly weak. Also, because we were at the doctor the whole day, um, her oxygen in her body was low, and there was a treatment that was being given for that. There was some kind of fluid buildup in her chest area, and they were doing constant sonography to check the fluid. They were trying to see if they can tap the fluid, which is just insert and just pull out the fluid to just make her breathe easily because her breathing was very heavy. One more thing with Fred, the breathing of your animal is going to change. It is one of the very clear side effects of that medication. It just seems like she's just breathing very heavily, but you just kind of get used to it, and so do they as in the animals. So we were dealing with plasma, we were dealing with electrolytes, we were dealing with the blood counts absolutely haywire, and we were dealing with fluid buildup in the chest, and of course liver was not functioning to its full capacity, kidney was not functioning, and there was some fluid in the lungs, hence the lung was not functioning in full capacity. So it is just basically a vicious circle of issues that were happening. And at one point, I couldn't even really point a finger to what was going on because everything seemed to be crumbling. And she was struggling. I could see it in her eyes. She, was just very uncomfortable, and that's really not her. She was full of life and actually pretty arrogant and full of attitude. And just to see her with that, discomfort on her face, I kind of had a feeling that she's really not enjoying this. They would, stick syringes into her every multiple times a day, and beyond a point, they couldn't even draw blood because her body was just not pumping enough blood, and she was going black and blue. There were days where they would have to poke all four limbs just trying to get at least a drop of blood from somewhere, and she was going pale. The breathing was becoming heavier than usual. So because of the breathing, we put her on oxygen, because basically assisted breathing, because they saw that she was very uncomfortable. And the whole day we did oxygen, and of course a lot of electrolytes. So sodium was given, potassium was given, and the various IV drip with a lot of antibiotics, etc., were going in, and her condition was really not improving as such. And on June 20th, the doctor sat us down and they gave us sort of a heads up that we need to start thinking about our options. I did tell the doctor that too much is happening with her. Every 2 hours someone's coming and poking her with something, and she's not enjoying this at all. But the doctor said that only because she's so young, they need to try everything possible in the book, if it was an old dog with similar um, symptoms, the doctor said that they would not have done so much to the animal. But it's just that she's so young, and we didn't want to have any regrets saying, "Oh, I wish we had tried this or wish we had tried that." So they literally didn't leave a single stone unturned in her treatment. Every possible thing was considered, every possible medication that could be given was given. But sadly, on June 21st morning is uh, is when he decided to leave us. So, like I was saying, on June 20th evening, the doctor sat us down and told us to be open to the idea of having to put her down because of her condition. All the vitals were low, and her breathing and all the basics were really in question. And while it is a noble thing to do, it would have been really difficult for us to take that decision. And we were thinking about it. Of course, we had to think about Cookie and what she wants and her quality of life. And we were thinking about it. So on 20th night, the doctors gave us an oxygen tank to take home. And they told us that the whole night she has to be on oxygen. So of course we were up all night and ensuring the mask is in place and that she's okay. So we monitored her all night. And of course, 21st morning, we rushed back to the doctor, and we got in, we started with oxygen. And that day, the doctors didn't do any other treatment, they just gave her oxygen. And things weren't looking great. And so Cookie was otherwise very okay with the oxygen, but that day she just kept resisting it. She just did not want that mask near her, or even the pipe near her. She just didn't want it. And we were sitting right there, and I told the doctor, she's seeming uncomfortable, let me take her out to poop, maybe that's what it is. And also before I forget, the food that we were giving her in this time was special gastro food. We were not giving her the typical chicken rice, none of that. Just canned food that the doctor had prescribed. So she was pooping, everything was pretty okay, on track. So I thought she needed to poop, and I took her out. She did her business, her last business. She did it. She stood on her own and did her business, and she sat there, watched me clean everything. And I carried her, and while I was bringing her back, she was right on my shoulder. And that's when she just very painlessly and almost effortlessly, she just gave me one last hug. And and that was it. That was it for Cookie, and that was it for our journey with GME. And I wish there was some video like this that I could have seen, because the journey just felt really weird. Just the feeling of why us, of all the issues, sorry, of all the issues that could happen, any kind of fevers and simple things like that, why this horrible disease and why us. And again, like I said, that's the point of putting up this video. There is hope. We did meet another Spitz at the doctor who was on GME medication for 3 years, and he was actually doing okay. He was doing fine. So the doctors are right. It is extremely subjective and it is extremely unpredictable. I wish that Cookie had been able to survive a little longer, but just the sheer amount of medication and the sheer amount of issues and side effects and all of that, just somewhere, she seemed done with all of it. She was done with the doctors and all of the pricking and the poking and the injections, and she didn't give us the need to pull the plug. She decided to do it herself. So if there's anything that I can look back at and be happy about, it's just the fact that she left on her own terms. But the sad truth is that it was GME, and it was more so the medication of GME that led to so many other issues and just led her whole body to shut down. So that was us and our story. And I will leave my email ID down below if anybody wants to reach out and discuss anything, or even just for emotional or moral support. I know I that did definitely benefit me in our journey with GME. So I will leave that down below. Please feel free to reach out, and I really hope this was helpful. And again, please don't use any of the medicines that I have named as prescription. I hope your journey with GME was a little better than ours. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Cookie is free of GME now, wherever she is. And I'm sure she's happier than she was in the last 2 months for sure. And thank you so much for watching.